Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I have a bit of a different setup today. I'm hoping everything works out. There's a bit of echo in my room, so I'm really hoping that that doesn't pick up on the mic, but I'm sorry if it does and I will try and sort that out. But yeah, I decorated and moved things around a bit in my room, so I have kind of a cuter background to film in front of. This is, I think, a pretty common video topic. I've seen a few other YouTubers do it. Mary Moons did it recently, so credit where credit is due. Like, this is not my idea. I just thought it would be fun to kind of give my own perspective on it. I realized that I haven't really done any sort of like intro to who I am or a lot of like personal Lolita related content. So I thought that this one might let you guys know a little bit more about me, why I love Lolita fashion, but also kind of my pet peeves and things like that. If it isn't already obvious by the video title, today I'll be talking about 5 things I love about Lolita fashion and 5 things I don't really like as much, or maybe dislike, or maybe hate. And obviously this isn't to be negative or anything like that. I think it's good to be realistic about Lolita fashion. There's lots and lots of awesome, great things about it that I'm going to talk about, but there are definitely things that maybe bother everyone as like individuals, or that maybe the community as a whole can improve on. And just to keep in mind, these are for myself, but I have seen, these kinds of things discussed by other people within the community, so maybe you'll relate to some of them. Let's start with the 5 things that I love. Number 1, the fact that this fashion allows me to be exactly who I want to be. I put this first because I think it's something that a lot of Lolitas tend to talk about. When I see myself dressed up like this and when I'm wearing Lolita, I really feel like I'm seeing who I'm meant to be and what I'm supposed to look like. And Lolita even is kind of who I feel like I am, even when I'm not wearing the clothes. I'm just kind of being Lolita in my heart. I'm a Lolita at heart. So when I was young, I was kind of a tomboy. I was the more like loud, extroverted, outdoorsy friend in my group. I wasn't really into like girly stuff like getting dressed up or my hair, makeup, or anything like that. And a big part of it was because I felt like my personality wasn't girly and like I was supposed to fit in more with boys. And that's because I was really loud and I was kind of a jokester and I wanted to get like down in the dirt and all of that kind of stuff, which are parts of being a girl, but like society at large made me feel like I was more like a boy than I was a girl. Especially being a lesbian, like I was attracted to women, which is a characteristic associated with men and with boys in pop culture and in like heteronormative culture. So as I grew up, I realized more that I can have that personality, who I'm meant to be, but also be feminine and girly and embrace that aspect that I loved about my womanhood. Lolita is like femininity turned up to like 100. So, it gave me the chance to not only embrace femininity, but like play with it, go over the top with it, have a lot of fun, and be just adoring of everything that has to do with being feminine, being cute, and some things that I might have like missed out on when I was younger that I loved like in my head but didn't get to wear or be a part of. And so even though I discovered it as a kid and I was, very different as a kid and more of a tomboy, because Lolita is something that you can only really afford when you're an adult, I don't feel like I missed out on anything. And now I'm able to live exactly the way I want to, with like no feelings of pressure to conform or be someone else. Number 2, the fact that Lolita is more than just clothes. Personally, I've always found that Lolita was more than just a fashion. When I discovered it, I think lifestyle stuff was really popular. There was a lot of lifestyle blogs and a lot of like intro to Lolita stuff or guide to Lolita mentioned lifestylers and whether you had to be a lifestyler or not. And I love that Lolita and like your passion for it can affect how you decorate your home, and it can help you make friends. A lot of people like gain lifelong friendships from Lolita fashion, and for me it's had a really positive impact on my life in that I think I appreciate my like items and my clothing more now, and I take better care of them thanks to Lolita. I'm definitely like a neater, more organized, and maybe even cleaner person thanks to Lolita. It motivates me to put in the effort needed to like go beyond what's natural or even do things that are difficult for me. I think it inspires a lot of people to take up new hobbies, maybe getting into hobbies that are traditionally considered craft or feminine, and things like sewing or embroidery and cooking, reading, like just lounging around and reading. I mean, things like that, which I think is really cool. I will always hold Lolita in my heart as more than just a fashion, not always a lifestyle, but more like an inspiration towards like your better self, your most Lolita self. And I think that's really neat. I definitely love that you can live a Lolita lifestyle in any way you want. Number 3, the community's support for artists. Everything in Lolita revolves around art and artisans, really, and I don't mean just prints, like I'm counting designers and seamstresses or sewers and people who do embroidery. All of this kind of stuff is artistic and involves both craft / trade and artistic ability. Everything from designing the dress to making the lace, drafting patterns, designing prints, the advertisements for the brands that are drawings, old GLBs that have photography and poetry, and everything that like Lolita fashion is about like comes back to art, and the community is just so supportive of artists and artisans. And I just love it so much because art is so fundamental to society but often so devalued. Taking up like a feminine art as a hobby and even as a career is a big deal in my opinion for a lot of women, because it can be really hard to survive off of that. And I love that the community appreciates the hard work and effort that goes into all of these like artists' work. And of course, I have a really good personal experience with the Lolita community and artists. I've been able to meet so many people who support my art. I've been able to take commissions and draw art for people who like appreciate my labor and pay me for it, which is a really big deal. It's hard to get commissions. It's hard to support yourself as an artist. On top of that, Lolitas are so enthusiastic about indie brands and indie artists. Like Lolitas will buy from a brand that existed yesterday, as long as it's someone who's in the community and who's putting out a good, like trustworthy product. And I think it's amazing that people are so ready to support someone's huge like leap into an art career, which is a very difficult and unstable, unsteady thing. So as an artist, honestly, thank you to the entire Lolita community for supporting art, for supporting artisans, and for caring so much about the work that artists put into the world. Number 4, AP's giant matching sets. I wanted to talk about a couple things that are more frivolous, more clothes related, you know. So this is really about AP's old sets that they used to release around one print, and there was a ton of matching stuff. Now, what I mean by this is when they used to release like a cut sew, multiple JSKs, socks, bags, etc., all that matched like one print. Because they don't really do that anymore. Sometimes the releases are better than others, but generally speaking now, I think you pretty much always get one OP, one JSK, a jewelry set, usually like a ring and a necklace, matching socks, and maybe a blouse, and always at least one headpiece, but it's not always a head bow, you know, like you might get a veil or whatever. Yeah, it was just so amazing to see so much hard work, like effort put into like this collection, I guess. It really gave Lolitas a chance to diversify their wardrobe for one specific print that they love, because it's like you could buy your Milky Chan the Fawn skirt, and you could buy the JSK, and you could buy the coat, and you could buy the cut sew, and it meant that you could wear Milky Chan the Fawn in like an OTT way or a casual way, and always be able to love and show off that print. I chose 3 favorites. First of all, the jewelry jelly set, which has 2 skirts, 2 JSKs, 1 OP, 1 necklace, one bracelet, one ring, 3 hair accessories, a parka and a cutso, socks, a special set, and stationery, and I think like a Kit Kat. Like AP did a collaboration with Kit Kat, and there was a Kit Kat with jewelry jelly on the box. It's on the little library, but I'm not sure what to believe. Second one is Marshmallow Bunny, which had a skirt, 2 JSKs, 1 OP, 1 salopette, 2 headpieces, a blouse, a parka, and a zip-up hoodie, a ring and a necklace, socks, and a brooch. And every item of this set is so cute. And of course, the Sugary Carnival set, which is iconic and has a JSK, an OP, and a skirt, 2 special sets, a tote bag, a cardigan, parka, and a zip-up hoodie, a short sleeve parka, socks, and of course, like a ton of pony-based accessories. Like there's a bangle, there's a ring, there's a necklace. I'm sure there's bracelets. I'm sure there's other things. And there's also been special items like, and I think these huge sets are part of what makes a lot of the older OTT sweet prints so iconic, because there's just so much to them, so much obvious effort. You could really incorporate it into your lifestyle. It showed how much they cared about these beautiful dresses because they wanted us to have as much of it as possible. And I want as much of it as possible. I want these big sets back. And lastly, tops. Blouses, cardigans, cutsos, whatever. I love, love, love tops made for Lolita fashion so much. There's just an incredible amount of detail. I feel like I've never seen things like them before I joined the fashion. And there's just so much detail for something you don't even see like half of because it's under a JSK. And I love when there's custom lace and custom buttons and pearls on the collar or rhinestones. So many possibilities. And I love sweet Lolita blouses, obviously, but I love blouses meant for other substyles too, like elegant Gothic blouses with like cross lace and made in all these interesting textures and fabrics. My friend Prince has this Moime Moitié cutso, which has like a beautiful floral lace all over it, and these like really extra dripping with lace sleeves of blouses made for classic with like high collars, with like vintage and historical details worked in a way that's like a bit more cute and more Lolita. I don't know. I'm just very enthusiastic about blouses and cardigans with like embroidery. I could go on all day. I won't, but I think it's probably one of my favorite aspects of Lolita is the blouses because of how unique it is. Okie dokie, let's move into negativity land and go with the 5 things that I strongly dislike / hate about Lolita fashion. Number 1, when trends are taken as rules. This is probably my biggest pet peeve, and I find the community tends to do this quite a bit historically. You can see this on old like Lolita guidebooks with things being like black and white is Ida or Rochelle lace is bad. Like these things that were not trendy being perceived as like you should never wear it, or you know, OTT makeup and wigs. And I've even heard about circle lenses kind of being an unspoken rule. And it's so frustrating because like, no, none of that stuff is required or inherently bad. Even Rochelle lace is not inherently bad. There's beautiful Rochelle lace pieces. You just don't want itchy, cheap, shitty lace, okay? Don't shit on Rochelle lace for no reason. People take trends as rules and they're not. Trends change. Like Lolita as it looks now will probably look completely different in 5-10 years, and that's completely normal. Right now I feel like really casual Lolita cords with no like non-Lolita elements are often looked down on. I'm talking about like a cutso / brand t-shirt, a skirt, tea parties, or simple Lolita shoes and socks, and maybe a headpiece, or just nicely done hair with no headpiece. It's like you're considered Ida or lazy or like not Lolita enough because experimental and OTT cords are so big. On Closet of Frills, there's been issues where casual cords have been rejected, where an OTT cord that basically only has a Lolita main piece and no other Lolita elements will be accepted. No, I don't have pictures. No, I'm not going to call anyone out. It's just something I've seen happen. And yeah, I find it so frustrating because it's a trend to like uplift experimental and OTT chords more than casual, and not a rule. So, number 2 is encouraging bad habits in the community. This is mostly done, I think, through like Raffle Chat, Big Sister of Lolita Fashion, Facebook discussion groups, or like meme pages on Instagram where there's jokes about bad habits that are kind of encouraged to look over because it's like, haha, funny, we all do it, so whatever, it's no big deal, even when it is a big deal. And I think it's good to be realistic about our bad habits and mistakes we made so like we can all learn and grow from them. But there's a difference between sharing it to grow from it and recognizing how it affects you, and just like making a joke about it so that you don't have to deal with it, which I do think is a prevalent sort of idea in the community. And I mean this in the nicest way possible because it's something I have to keep learning and working on, and I'm speaking from personal experience. But coping mechanisms for stress like overspending, impulse spending, and hoarding tendencies are not good habits to have in life. And again, I don't think it's bad to use humor, but my only issue is that I rarely see serious conversations about this. The vast majority of conversations I see around it are jokey and kind of like pushing it to the side. And I wish we were able to have more discussions on like Ruffle Chat as a whole to talk about like coping with overspending, planning your wardrobe, budgeting, and just being realistic about how expensive Lolita can be and how dramatically it can affect your spending habits. I do see it come up sometimes when like one person asks a question on basis of Lolita fashion, but I think it would be good to encourage this as a normal conversation instead of just a joke in the community as a whole. Number 3, the same discussions happening over and over and over on Facebook groups. I am not the only one who has mentioned this. I feel like every seasoned or somewhat more than a year Lolita has talked about this, and I think it's been particularly bad this year because so many new people have joined in quarantine and their only exposure to the fashion is online. But like every week the same discussions come up on Ruffle Chat or Big Sisters of Lolita Fashion, and it's getting boring to participate in them and answer them, especially when people don't use the search function for really basic stuff like, should I or shouldn't I order from Devil Inspired? No, you shouldn't. Are animal ears okay with Lolita? Like anything else, it depends on the quality and design, but generally yes. Or like, what print do you want to see more of, / what prints are you tired of seeing? It's just like, but yeah, like, can we just think of new questions, please? These discussions are going in circles. Number 4, AP's insistence on no longer releasing any OPs with even a smidgen of shirring. This is definitely something many people have complained about, but it bothers me too, so I'm saying it again. Obviously, I know shirring is generally an aesthetic choice, and AP's mission of inclusivity is basically non-existent, but it is good for different body types, and it's great for aging Lolitas because your body might change as you get older, or you might decide to have children, and it's good to be able to keep the same JSKs, which usually have shirring, but the OPs don't. And if your OPs have at least a panel of shirring or a full back of shirring, you're way more likely to keep them your whole life. And I personally don't buy like JSKs, OPs, or skirts with no shirring. So I just want to see AP release stuff that's more comfortable, that is more inclusive, and it's also very cute. Shirring is very cute. Not only has shirring become non-existent, but just generally like diversity in cut and design for AP has gone downhill, and that's a whole other thing to get into. And finally, number 5, constantly having to explain misconceptions to people. There's the very obvious ones, like explaining stuff to normies about not being in a play and not being a living doll and it not having to do with the book. But what annoys me more is when it comes from people who are into like alternative fashion or who allegedly claim to have been a part of the community at one point. But I don't understand how people who are in alternative fashion are going to turn around and, you know, accuse the entire Lolita community of being catty bitches which is just so misogynistic, obviously. You're into alt fashion, you're into like these subcultures that have misconceptions about them, you're into this stuff that you have to explain to normies, but you don't take any time to do any effort of research into Lolita just because it's a slightly different fashion that actually has like a more consistent aesthetic and rule set than a lot of alt fashions. And like the idea that we're all like rich and skinny and white and all of this stuff, it's like, no, there is a diversity of Lolitas. There's obviously Lolitas of color. I mean, it's a Japanese fashion. There's obviously dark-skinned Lolitas, there's disabled Lolitas, there's LGBT Lolitas, whatever. Like, it's a fashion community. There's going to be all sorts of people in it. And the idea that it's just catty, skinny, rich white bitches like this is Mean Girls or something is so ridiculous. It's like not like other girls shit all over again within all fashion communities, and it's tiring. Like when even the newbies or the people who allegedly admire the fashion don't get it, what are you supposed to do with the normies who don't get it? It's impossible at that point to explain it, and that's why I don't try anymore. Now, I wanted to end on a positive note, so as a bonus sixth thing that I love about Lolita fashion, I wanted to mention other sub-styles. I only wear sweet, and I've said this before, but I love gothic and classic. I love old school. I love like themes like sailor and guru and whatever. I just love the diversity within Lolita and how people can make it their own and find their own approach to it, and you can make it fit for like any occasion. And there's so much effort put into every substyle and every part of it. They have such an important part to Lolita's history, and I just so love the like depth of knowledge that exists in this fashion, and there being multiple substyles is a big part of that. Well, that was all for today's video. I would love to hear a few things that you love or maybe hate about Lolita, about the fashion, the clothes, or the community. I think it's important to be like celebratory and honest and improve the community at the same time. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video. But until then, bye bye.